So,
we're going to get homework though. I'm sorry, I didn't.
well, it's optional homework. Don't worry.
Do they know what you do?
No, I'm about to explain that. So I am the instructional coach here, and what that means is I work with the teachers just on different things. Like right now, my main focus is on Mrs. Lawrence going to 4th grade. But the yeah, should be, right?
It's not a house mic, that's a recording mic.
Oh, thank you. There you go.
But we have a new reading framework in the district, and so it's not too, you won't notice a huge difference. The kids should be used to having guided reading groups because we've been doing that all the time. It's just kind of some fine-tuning things. Just where the first 20 minutes they're doing whole group instruction. That's the lesson. They're working with text, getting how to use books. And then for the 65 minutes, they'll be in groups or just reading by themselves. And at the end, just kind of a wrap up. So it's nothing too out of the ordinary. The kids probably won't notice a huge difference. It's more of a shift for the teachers. But I work with them on reading, any of the core subject areas. So sometimes I might work with a few kids, but for the most part it's with the staff. So I asked you, and I'm actually going to show the staff this, just what are your hopes and goals? Because I think a lot of times we kind of get a little sidetracked and just thinking, oh my gosh, when you go to conferences you get handed a bunch of papers with all these numbers and letters and you're like, oh, what do I have to do? It's all right. We want to get back on track. Just think of their long-term goals, like things like somebody put just being successful in whatever he does, stretching imagination and having fun, learning as much and being a good student. So, that's just kind of something that will really help the teachers, I think, just kind of remember, okay, not that, they forget, but sometimes it can get a little overwhelming, especially the older they get, because, we have so many tests that we throw on them. So, I want to do a quick walkthrough of some of the things I brought. If any of it interests you, feel free to grab it on your way out. If not, I will not be offended. First thing, in the move, there were a bunch of books, obviously that were packed up and brought over, and I discovered them in about May. So these are all of the parent books. They're meant to be given to you. So if you have an interest in any of these things, we've got things like the Parent Guide to Hassle-Free Homework. Feel free to take a book. If you want A Mind at a Time, feel free to grab it. Parenting with Love and Logic. And then a couple others, Parenting, or Parents Homework Dictionary, and Show Me You Love Me, A Parent's Fun Guide to Teaching Children They Are Valuable. So, if any of these are appealing to you, feel free to grab one, all, however much you want. I would not be disappointed if the box was a lot lighter on my way back. Another thing, feel free to grab if you want. This is kind of geared more towards older kids. I went to a session. Our district has a professional development 3 days over the summer, and one of the presenters handed this out. It's How to Study Smarter, and it's not really an article as much as just a table where it has some common things like one column says, if you think blank, then try this. So for example, one is, if you think I just don't get it, then it gives you an idea, a tip. Oh, this is what you could do. So it really works for me, especially with like grad school stuff. Kids, if they're ever getting frustrated, this is just kind of something you can refer to. Even as they get older, just some helpful things to kind of coach them along so they don't feel bogged down and overwhelmed. If you didn't get it already, we have Mayan, which is online books. So this is just an instruction sheet how to access it at home. They all have a login. It's all their 500 number, which they should know. If not, the teacher can tell you. And it's just books. They took a pre-test at one point, and so they're all at their level. Just fun, interactive books, and it's got a little quiz at the end. Clear Lab, I preached this at back to school night, and I'm going to preach it again. The Clear Lab, they are at Lincoln Middle School. It's open to any Pike Township student, K through 12. They offer one-on-one tutoring, computer access, homework help. They tutor in English and in Spanish, and they also do a lot of technology support. So now, especially us at Eagle Creek, we do a lot more with Google Docs, Padlet, different things like that you might not be super familiar with. So if they're trying to work on something at home and you're just like, I don't really know what to do, you can swing over here. Most of the volunteers are at the high school, so they just click, click, click. They already know. They've done it for class, for the last 4 years. So it's just a really helpful resource, especially as the kids get older. I'm sorry? Hours, they are 4 to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. Then the last thing, because we get a lot of questions about how can I help my child with reading, because we had a little bit of a shift where we're not giving the students reading benchmarks 3 times a year anymore. Some teachers, have that option, but for everyone overall in the district, they're only doing it at the end of the year. So what that means is we're relying on teaching kids how to figure out just right books. So an easy rule is if they're having trouble with more than 5 words on a page, it's too hard for them. There is an exception though. If they're super into, let's say it's a Star Wars book, they're really into Star Wars, and even though they're having trouble, they're still really into it. That's fine. Let them work through it. It's not going to be the end of the world. But if they're getting frustration and you figure out, there's 5 words on this page you don't know, and they're already getting aggravated, help them pick out a different book that's a little bit simpler. Then this is just a really nice card for parents. It's designed for parents for reading. So on the back it has things that you can do with your kid before reading, during reading, and after reading. And on the front, it just kind of talks about just some quick bullet points about comprehension. And if you can't do anything else, just do these 3, these little things, just some different ideas. So it has questions that kind of fit regardless, all reading levels. Because you as parents don't need to get hung up in, what kind of question do I ask at an M? These are broad enough that regardless of their level, it's going to apply to them, and they're going to have to think if it really is, a book that they should be reading, if that makes sense.
Are the NWEA tests used to determine the kids' reading levels, since you said benchmarks aren't done anymore?
No. So NWEA would be a separate data point that we use. So that just covers based on the country, it takes those norms, which is based on the average kid in that grade level, and in 3 areas in reading, so fiction, nonfiction, and vocab, it gives them a score, and that just kind of helps the teacher fine-tune exactly where are they needing help, or are they needing some extra enrichment, that's the word. Then in math, it just breaks down these 6 areas of math. So it's data, statistics, geometry, measurement, computation, number sense, and algebra. Yes. So, and that, again, it kind of gives you an idea, so if their score is a little low in geometry, we could work on some of these things, and the teacher can tell you a little more specific, but that just kind of gives the nitty-gritty with teaching as a whole. Is that?
We're doing the benchmarking just twice a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using the data from beginning, middle, and end.
Makes sense.
So we're using the data from the end of last year.
Right.
Unless a student is new to us, then we're doing that benchmarking now, so we have a baseline. But if they came from the district, that is in Skyward, pending. But we use progress monitoring all along the way, so if somebody is moving before December, middle of the year, then we would move them.
Or if a teacher is seeing a score, like from another school, but it's not feeling right quickly, we would go ahead and benchmark that student just to double check.
Also, the teachers will be doing informal checks throughout the year also. So those will be called running records. And that's just a quick check to make sure, is this kid still reading at this level, or could I push them up a little bit more? So the emphasis is ideally less to really kind of assign level, just say, you need to be reading at this level all the time, just to kind of open it up more for a love of books and for the levels to kind of be more of the teacher's worry. And then if it is something that, the teacher needs you to work with, they'll let you know, do X, Y, and Z because we do want to bump them up a little bit more. But to kind of take, some of that pressure off is the goal of that, the district's goal basically for that. So the last part I've got, this is the hands-on part. Because if you want to give them worksheets to practice, you can go to Barnes & Noble and buy one of the 4th grade, everything you need to know in 4th grade book. These are more just fun, easy, you can do whenever you want. Most of them you can buy at Target or Walmart, sort of a thing. So the first one I've got, and I'm going to have you all try these out because there's no sense in me preaching about it and then, you go home and you're not really sure how to play it with your kid. The first thing is super simple, Scrabble. Words, gets them practicing reading words, creating words, thinking about phonics, regardless of whether they're in kindergarten or in 5th grade. This can help them because they're going to start pushing themselves to make more complex words, and they're more apt to kind of go out on a limb and try new things in a game than, if they were to be sitting and, doing a worksheet. The next one is kind of and I'm just going to tell you right now, I did this with my 4th grade parents 2 years ago. I did a little parent night kind of like this, and a group of parents started playing this, and then they kicked their kids away, and it got really intense really fast. So what this is, Scrabble Slam, it's basically a word building game. So everyone will get a set, I think it's 7 cards, and then from the deck you would set 3 down and make a word. And then basically using your cards, you're trying to stack cards to make a new word. You could add more cards. So like if you had cat, let's say C-A-T, and then you wanted to throw an S at the end, okay, you've got cats, that's fine. But now with the more letters, the harder it gets because you also, you're a little more limited. And so the kids at first, they just start adding letters at the end, and they're like ha 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 until it's their turn again, and then all of a sudden they're stumped. So that's kind of where you can coach them a little bit. But this is a really fun game. The kids like it a lot. Parents liked it a lot. This is probably the easiest one. I think you could just play on a regular basis with them. Last one. This is kind of more segueing into writing a little bit. These are called story cubes. There's actually 3 now. I've got the orange one is the original, then there's an actions one, and there's one more, I don't remember, it's green. I haven't bought it. But the gist of it is all of these have pictures on them. And so you just roll them and you have to create some sort of story that makes sense. I used to have my kids, this was actually an activity they would do, and they would just have to use those to kind of create a story about, just for some fun right time. But that's pretty much it. And this is in the game. All of these are in the games aisle at Target or Walmart or Meijer, wherever you go. This is, now I'm in the Dollar Tree section. So, simple game, deck of cards, you can do so much. If you want even more ideas, Mrs. Lawrence is a great resource because she has a whole binder full of games that you could use. So, for a lot of the... You'll never know. So...
Reading about the meeting.
Basically, it was Baby Harrison's fault.
Okay.
He didn't object.
All right, great. Young kids, war is the easiest game you could play for number sense because you have to figure out higher, lower. You could even kick it up a notch and say, what's the difference between those two numbers? Really easy. There are a few other games that now I should have written down, and I was going to, but my other meeting ran really long and I forgot. So I'm sorry about that. But Mrs. Lawrence is a great resource for more card games. So deck of cards you can get at Dollar Tree, really easy, a lot of different ideas. If you follow me on Twitter, if I can find my list quickly, I'll tweet it. Or just follow me on Twitter because I'm fun. The next one just involves dice. Again, Dollar Tree, you get 8, I think, for $1. Does that sound right? Pack of 8 for $1. And so this game, this is what my 4th graders loved. This is one where the 4th graders, it got really intense really fast. It's called Lobster Turtle. It's a little bit of a twist. The original is played with, it's an actual game called Lobster Turtle. So this is just kind of tweaked with dice. So I actually have an instruction sheet so that you could take with you. But all you need is dice and a paper and pencil. So one person, you need 2 dice. One person rolls it. You add the numbers that you rolled. Super simple. You can roll again if you want. If you stop, then, or whenever you stop, you just write down your score. The catch, if you roll a 1, you get 0 for that round. So if either one of your dice has 1, then womp womp, you get a 0. So they kind of have to gamble a little bit and figure out, okay, how far am I going to go? If you roll 2 1s at the same time, though, you get 50 points for that round. So the goal is to try to get 2 1s, or as high a score without getting 1 1. You have the score for each round. You take turns. First player to 100 wins. So this is just practicing addition. Ideally, we want them to be able to do their facts really quickly, and obviously the higher it gets, the more digits they have to add. So you could totally change it, first person to 500, 121, any random thing, we just kind of picked 100. You could also change the number and do it for multiplication. So the same thing where you just multiply whatever the 2 dice are, and then add each one, each round. Really easy extension on that. I kind of flew through these games really quickly, but are there any questions? Also, Mrs. Lawrence has a lot of great dice games too. So, for the next few minutes, come on up, grab a game that you want to try, and just have at it, give it a whirl, so that you can kind of take these home. And this is probably the easiest and most fun way to practice things like, reading and phonics and word building, as well as, fact practice that you can do.
I played Lobster Turtle with my 4th graders who are hesitant with using their multiplication. I give them a choice of adding or multiplying, but obviously you get to your goal faster if you multiply. So even when they started out adding, their competitive nature kicked in and their desire to get there faster. And so then all of a sudden they were no longer adding their digits together and were taking the time to multiply.
It is a great way to sneakily motivate them. Yes. Use them, but don't share. If you do play Lobster Turtle, I just have these little mats, which are just cut up placemats to kind of help contain the dice. And so with the kids in the classroom, the goal is that you had to keep the dice on the mat, and if you got them off, then you got 0 for that round, so that I didn't have dice flying across the room, as you can probably imagine would happen in your living room as well if you kind of walk away. So, Scrabble Slam, Lobster Turtle, come on up, take your pick, and that's about all I have.